Hello everyone and welcome to the new and improved Tarvis 7.9 YouTube experience. The first order of business is to apologize for my voice. You wouldn't believe how miserable the last 2 weeks have been. Literally the morning after I recorded that last channel update, I took ill with the flu. Positive test, bad news. That ended after 3 or 4 days, and it actually wasn't that bad. But as a complication, I developed a nasty case of sinusitis, which still hasn't completely gone away. Although I mostly feel better, there's still a lot of gunk, and I still don't have my voice back. But it is what it is. It's New Year's Day, I have the day off of work, and I'm not about to forego this opportunity to record my first video. There are lots of things to catch up on. I did, over the last 2 weeks, receive all of the parts and build myself a phenomenal new computer. I couldn't be happier with it. It's running an i5 and a GTX 980. You don't really need to know much else. Still Windows 7. I've decided to start doing video overlays, which is why I bought a webcam, and I seriously upgraded my headset, as you can see. I've decided to do actual video editing in accordance with doing the overlays. That should really smooth things out. As much fun as it was to just go for 5 or 6 hours, I've decided to limit myself to 1-hour videos, regardless of whether I get to a nice logical endpoint or not. After all, one of the glories of PC gaming is that you can stop pretty much anywhere you want to. Now finally, about which game I'm going to play first or what projects I want to do. Considering my haul over the holiday season, I actually have a few things I'm really excited to do. I'm super excited to play Legendary Skyrim with mods, and that's going to be my main project, as I indicated. I'm also very excited to try the original Thief games, Thief 1 and 2, with the new Dark patch. I'm not as excited, but New Thief, Thief 4, did get itself a patch that I didn't notice in November, so I'm at least going to check and see if it fixed the bugs so I can finish that playthrough. And finally, I'm very excited about Alien Isolation. I'm toying with the idea of doing that one blind just because it is a horror game that's supposed to be oppressively scary, and I can really see the merit of a blind playthrough if we're talking horror, because you want to share the actual scares with your audience. So I think that I'm going to focus on doing Legendary Skyrim with Alien Isolation as my first side project, and Thief 1 and 2 Iron Man style with the new Dark patches as another side project. I'll probably finish, even if I did one of each for every 5 Skyrim videos, I would still probably finish them first, which is fine. So, let's make Skyrim be quiet by starting a new game. And then I'll go over the rules of the playthrough and the mod list. Just look how good that looks. I can hardly get over it. Oh, it's outstanding. So we can access the journal as soon as the Skyrim title fades from the screen, and that will be my first order of business, because there's a substantial amount to go over. Mod list, rules of the playthrough. That all starts at the very beginning. I do have to change some things up if I'm going to liven it up for you viewers who were along for the ride the first time. Bethesda Game Studios presents I still have a bit of a cough, and I apologize for that too. The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim. Now, as soon as that fades, we can get to the quest journal. The quest journal lists your quests and objectives. Select a quest and press E to make it the active quest, which adds its quest target to your compass and world map. Alright. Let me do my mod list first. The mod list is pretty basic. I use from the r/Skyrim Reddit the list of the best must-have mods for Skyrim. So, of course, we have the Skyrim script extender, SKSE, installed. I'm using Boss to keep my mod load order working properly. I use the Nexus Mod Manager to install everything. Excuse me. That's gross, I know. Now, I tried to scrupulously avoid mods that changed the gameplay in any appreciable way, so that those of you who are on consoles can still follow along with my playthrough. The exception to that is the first and most important mod I installed are the unofficial Skyrim patches. For Skyrim, Dawnguard, Dragonborn, Hearthfire, and the high-res texture pack. I didn't think it would change too much, since I was using the console to fix bugs anyway. If you're on Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, you'll just have to live with the glitches, and for that I apologize. The other major change, and I'll show you once I have access to it, is I installed SkyUI. Massive interface overhaul just makes the game so much more intuitive and easier to navigate. Other than that, everything is just graphical or immersion. I installed iHUD, a pretty cool mod that does something very simple and yet very game-changing. It hides the HUD when you don't need it. It shows it when you do. You wouldn't believe what it does for immersion. I installed a quality world map with roads. All it does is make the roads visible on your world map. Pretty nice. I installed Xenius character enhancement. I installed the Ethereal Elven overhaul. And I installed Apache Skyhair, all of which are just visual improvements. I installed Climates of Tamriel, which puts in a bunch of new weather patterns and systems with sound effects and visual effects to go along with them. I installed Enhanced Blood Textures. I installed book covers. I installed Radiant and Unique Poisons and Potions HD. I installed Booze Bottles HD. I installed Skyrim 2K HD, which is a big texture overhaul. I installed Vert's Floral Overhaul. I installed Pure Waters. And I installed the Static Mesh Improvement mod. I installed Footprints. I installed No Spinning Death Animation. I installed Player Head Tracking. And I installed Clanking Armor. Those are all the mods I have. You can probably understand just from hearing the list that with the exception of SkyUI and the unofficial patches, they're all just visual enhancements. That's it for the mod list. Let's talk about the rules of the playthrough. Here at the very beginning, the very moment that we can access the quest journal, we need to make sure that the difficulty is set on legendary, where it will remain for the duration. And I'll show you the rest of my settings too. The look sensitivity starts out absurdly low, so I moved it over to about here. I don't know why vibration and 360 controller are on. I'm using a mouse and keyboard, so let's turn those off. We can show floating markers. We can keep all the autosaves. That works fine. Let's look at display options. Maximize the fade for all of these. And I do enjoy the crosshair, and I do enjoy subtitles. You couldn't see these, but I'm playing in 1920 by 1080 resolution with everything set to max. Pretty basic. Let's see, let's maximize all the fades. Yeah, why not? Oh, I see what's happening. I'm trying to wheel around, and it's applying it to individual stuff. Finally, on audio, Let's turn down the music just a little. Let's turn down footsteps too. And let's even turn down effects. Let's keep voice maxed. Alright. Controls I'm not going to change. I'll go with the defaults. I think they work pretty darn well. Now the help menu, I like to go through it right quick just because it's a good amount of flavor text and it does a good job talking about things. So let's start with alchemy. Alchemy labs allow you to create potions and... No, actually I changed my mind. I'm trying to save time here. So there's the help menu if you want it. If you don't, you can skip over it. I'm not going to read it for you. Similarly, I think that I'm not going to read books or notes anymore. What I'm going to do instead is annotate a link to the text over the video after it uploads. So when I pick up a new book, I'll indicate the name, I'll take a second to remove it off my lists, and I will annotate a link probably to the UESP. I like them because they're ad-free, because they have the text of every single book and every single note in the game. And that way, if you're interested in the text and you're watching the video, you can click on the link, you can go read the text yourself, and for us, personally, we can save time and just get through the stuff. So, yeah, I think that's going to work out much better. So, with that said, let me talk about the other rules of the playthrough. Apart from playing on Legendary, the other major challenge that I'm imposing for myself is what I'm calling Ironborn mode. Those of you who are familiar with Game of Thrones know what I'm talking about. You can pay the gold price or you can pay the iron price for things, and essentially what it's going to boil down to is I will not buy anything from merchants. Everything I find has to be either stolen or taken off of someone I kill. I won't pay the gold price for anything. I think it's certainly doable because there are lots of things out in the universe of Skyrim, and at the same time, I think it makes it quite exciting. So, without further ado, let's get through Helgen. Game always starts the same way. Don't worry about the frame rate. I'm running a background download, so things are... Sorry, I need to talk a little bit. Don't worry about the frame rate. I know it's hovering a little over 30 right now. I've stress tested. I can do all this at 60. The problem is I'm downloading some software in the background because I only have this hour really to record. So this first video will be a little suboptimal in terms of frame rate, but that's fine. Future installments, when shit gets real, when I'm fighting and everything, they recorded a nice 60. I already tested it. So we have a decision to make here. Choosing your race is actually pretty darn important because, well, I think you know why. It's really the only permanent decision you make about your character until you start allocating perks. You don't have to choose major or minor skills in this game like you did in earlier ones, as you may well know. So I'll briefly discuss the races, which ones I feel are pretty good, and why I ultimately choose to be a Nord. So, first, every race has a set of skill bonuses. Every skill starts at a floor of 15, and then each race gets 5 bonus points to 5 skills and 10 bonus points to a 6th. They also get an active effect and like an inherent ability that's on at all times, and they get a power which they can use once every 24 hours. So the skill allocations don't matter. Eventually you get every skill to 100 no matter what race you are, so I don't even consider those. Powers can be useful. They can save your butt once a day, but considering you can only use them once every 24 hours, they don't really tend to impact my decision that much. What matters most to me is the constant effect and how useful it is, and not so much in the leveling process, but how useful it is in terms of your character at the end of the game. So, with that said, let's talk about Argonians. Their active effects are a 50% disease resistance and full-on underwater breathing, which is actually sort of useful, but not really, because diseases are an annoyance at worst. There's shrines everywhere, and as soon as you hit one, it immediately cures any disease. Water breathing is, you don't need it often enough for it to really be useful, and even if you did, you can replicate it with any piece of enchanted equipment. So, Argonian, not so much, unless you've got a good role-playing reason that you want to use them. Let's talk Breton. And if you'll excuse me, I have to blow my nose. And while I wait for the Breton to pop up. There he is. Now, I would say that objectively, Bretons probably have the most useful inherent ability. They have an innate 25% resistance to all forms of magic. That covers fire, frost, and shock. If you play as a Breton, there's a very good argument for doing it, because if you use the Lordstone and you dedicate 2 perks to magic resistance in the alteration tree, you can get to 85% magic resistance without having to burn any equipment slots on it, which is pretty damn good. I would say objectively, Bretons are probably the best race to use. And frankly, they are in all the Elder Scrolls games I'm aware of, because nothing comes close to the value of inherent magic resistance. Pretty freaking dominant. Let's talk Dunmer. Dunmer, or Dark Elves, are fun for role-playing reasons, especially if you're a fan of Morrowind and have been playing Elder Scrolls games that long. They also have one of the more useful inherent abilities. They've got 50% fire resistance, which means that if you dedicate an equipment, they're basically equivalent to Nords in that you can get to 85% resistance to all elements if you dedicate 2 equipment slots to it. The unfortunate fact is Dark Elves and Nords will both have to use shields in order to get to that 85%. I like to use shields anyway, so it doesn't matter too much, but one cool thing about Bretons is they get to dual wield because they can get to 85% without it. Dunmer and Nords can both get to 85 in the same way. You need a shield with magic resistance on it. And then for a Dunmer, you can put resist frost and resist shock on a pair of boots. For a Nord, you flip it to resist fire and resist shock. So then it comes down to which race you like better. There are plenty of good role-playing reasons to choose a Dark Elf. High Elf. They get 50 extra magicka, which is fucking useless because every single spell can be enchanted down to 0 casting cost, and it's what you should be doing with your equipment, no matter what race you are. I have nothing more to say about them. Imperial. Their innate ability is Imperial Luck. They find more gold than everybody else. Fucking useless. Let's go to Khajiit. Khajiit inherent ability. They do 15 extra points of unarmed damage with their claws. Guess what I'm gonna say about that? That's right, it's fucking useless. Now let's talk about Nords. Nords have a useful ability, just like Dunmer do. The 50% frost resistance means that if you dedicate 2 equipment slots, you can get to 85% resist all, just like a Dunmer. Like I mentioned when discussing the Dunmer, you have to switch out the frost resistance on the boots for fire resistance, but it's the same way. I personally like the Nord, and I choose to play the Nord because I like the storyline of using the race whose province this is. It's the same reason I always play a Dunmer in Morrowind, even though they're probably not objectively the best race. Now, if Nords were objectively useless like a lot of the races, I could probably be persuaded to overcome them. But I don't mind dedicating 2 equipment slots to resistances, because I like using a shield anyway for the shield charge perk and the ability to block. And with that in mind, there's not a substantial disadvantage to using a Nord instead of a Breton. I don't like dual wielding. I prefer to use block, and with that, Nords are just as good, and I like the storyline aspect. Let's look briefly at the other races. Orcs don't get an active effect. All they have is a power. Now granted, it's easily the most useful power in the game, but you can only use it every 24 hours, and they have no inherent advantage, so I can't see any reason why you'd want to play an orc. Red Guards. 50% resistance to poison. Pretty useless. And finally, Wood Elves. 50% resistance to poison and disease. So if you really like the disease and poison resistance from Argonians and Red Guards, you should use a Wood Elf to combine them. But I still think it's lame. You should use the only 3 races I can see an objective argument for using in terms of how powerful they are: the Nord, the Dark Elf, and the Breton. And they're fairly equal among them. If you want to dual wield, absolutely go with a Breton, no question. If you like using a shield, then you're free to choose based on the aesthetic. And aesthetically, I like Dark Elves and Nord. Nord edges out in this game because we're inside Skyrim. So let's customize him a little bit. I'm going to play as a male. I'm really only interested in changing his hairstyle, so let's go there. I don't need to mess with the facial structure. We'll start with facial hair. I said we'll start with facial hair. I'm clean shaven in real life, and I'm going to make my Nord mirror me. Well, now I'm actually a pasty white guy with pretty light blue eyes, so let's just I'm looking for the sky hares. There they are. Now let's find one that's a little more masculine. I'm going to roll with that. And I'm actually going to go change the eye color a little just because I kind of want him to match me. My eyes aren't bloodshot. They aren't quite that shade of blue. That's pretty close. And, yeah, we'll go with that. Finish and name him. Boom. Alrighty, here we go. Started unbound. Make your way to the keep. Well, that was an interesting little glitch. Oh good, we can save and load now. Now, I do want to say that, yeah, we've got the actual quest journal and the general stats available now, too. So, you begin the game. I'll tell you about my lists, and at the end of the playthrough, I'll upload these for your perusal. I might not even wait to the end, we'll see. So I have a list of all the quests in the game, including all of the random encounters out in the world of Skyrim. I've got a list of all the locations, both that you can discover and that you can clear. I've got a list of every unique item, a list of every spell. I'm following the order presented in a walkthrough on Game FAQs by Rune Hansen, handle Thunderstorm 2. I've got my build, which in Legendary mode will ultimately be every perk in the game. I've got a list of alchemy ingredients with all their effects. I've got a checklist of all of the gear I need, both for my ultimate character build and for every quest in the game, including building all the Hearthfire houses. I've got a list of every dragon shout. I've got a list of every available free skill boost, a list of every enchanting effect we can learn, and a list of every book we can read. So, in the description to every video, I will make note of what we found and removed from each list over the course of that video. So, just to clarify, different races have different spells at the start. My Nord begins with the destruction spell Flames and the restoration spell Healing. He begins with a rough spun tunic, which I'm actually going to save for use later on in the crafting loop. And we begin with Helgen on our map as the only location we've discovered. Let's proceed. Alright, now we need to enter the keep with Hadvar or Ralof. This is the first decision in the game. I go with Hadvar, let me tell you why and what the differences are. The main differences are who your host family is when you get to Riverwood, and what kind of enemies and what equipment are available to you in the tutorial dungeon Helgen Keep. So, let me also mention what it doesn't affect. It does not in any way affect the Civil War questline. Whether you want to side with the Imperials or the Stormcloaks, both options remain available to you, so don't worry about that. Inside Helgen Keep, if you go with Ralof, you can't get any two-handed weapons. The Imperial soldiers that you fight all only have one-handed weapons. Whereas if you go with Hadvar, the Stormcloaks you fight, you can get both one- and two-handed weapons. However, if you go with Hadvar, all of the Stormcloaks wear light armor only. If you go with Ralof, you get to fight the Imperial captain who ordered your execution, which is pretty satisfying from a story perspective, I have to admit. And you can also take her heavy armor, as well as the light armor you can find off of Gungnir. But you can get a set of iron armor the minute you get out of the keep, almost literally. And you can get a two-handed weapon pretty much the same way. So that isn't really a factor for me. The other big difference is who your host family is in Riverwood. It's either Hod, Girder, and Frodnar, or Alvar, Secret, and Dorothy. Now, it's much better to have Alvar, Secret, and Dorothy because you don't have another way to become friends with them and get access to their homes. Whereas, even if you side with Hadvar, you can also make friends with Hod and Girder just by chopping some firewood. So given that option, I think it just objectively makes more sense to go through Helgen Keep with Hadvar. So that's what I'm going to do. Completed. All right. So now we have access to the UI, and I'll show it to you in a second, particularly how the mods work. Excuse me. But it also bears mentioning another playthrough rule that I forgot. I'm not going to grind, which is very hard for me, because when I play off camera, I'm a grinding fiend. But that's no fun to watch, so I'm going to play without grinding. I will, however, point out to you good opportunities to grind. Unlike Fallout, I'm also going to obsessively pick up everything I find, because the speech skill. Instead, I'm going to try to naturally raise things as I go. So, you'll notice already from the unofficial patch that the bookcase isn't brushed into the table like it used to be. The books have also changed to what they're supposed to be. So here we do have Mixed Unit Tactics by Codus Colonus. First, let me pull it off my book list. And second, I need to look at about the time in the recording I found it. Looks like we're 40 minutes in, just so I can know where to pop the annotation. Now, this one was in the original, but this you couldn't get to, but it makes sense that it would be here. It's The Holds of Skyrim. And it basically gives you a nice overview of all the geography, the 9 different holds that you can find in this place. A field guide for the Imperial officers, which makes sense. Alrighty, so we got those 2 books. I've adequately noted it. This chest is empty. This one has 4 gold and an Imperial light helmet, which I'll go ahead and put on for now. Although I should note that I need 2 helmets for my crafting loop, and that's my first one. It bears mentioning that the unofficial patch did get rid of the what probably was a bug, where there were 3 specific helmets in the game that allowed you to also simultaneously wear a circlet. The Falmer helmet, the Penitus Oculatus helmet, and the Jagged Crown, which is why in the original playthrough I was waiting for a Falmer helmet. But that does read like a glitch to me, and they got rid of it, so at the cost of a slight reduction in ultimate power, any old helmet works just fine. So there's our first helmet of the 2 I need. Let's see, we've got a broom, wine, alto wine, wooden ladle, an iron sword, which I'll go ahead and put on. Press R to ready your weapon, by all means. I'm going to start sneaking everywhere until I find a shield or a 2-handed weapon I might as well dual wield. Beats having an empty hand. And before I open that chest, I want to point out an opportunity to grind. There's a glitch here that the unofficial patch didn't even get rid of, and I'm not actually sure if it's a glitch. I think it's intentional, but it can be exploited, and that is the fact that whether you're with Hadvar or Ralof, not only are they essential, but for the duration of the tutorial, they will never turn hostile, which means you can wail on them as much as you want to. So if you're in sneak mode, you can use sneak attacks to quickly get your sneak to 100. You can use this iron sword, although it takes half of forever to get your one-handed to 100. And if you are really super patient, you can whack him with the flame spell over and over again to get your destruction to 100. I'm going to do none of the above, but I will say that if you are comfortable doing what is a mild exploit, it can be really, really useful to get out of here already having 100 sneak. So, let's search the Warden's chest now. We got the Helgen Keep Key, a set of Imperial Light boots, and a set of Imperial Light armor. So let's put them on for now. They're better than what we're wearing. Alright, let me take a minute to show you the changes with SkyUI. So the skill interface doesn't change. I'm going to do a much shorter version that doesn't involve reading all of the perks. So skills really break into a few categories for me. Category 1, offense, aka ways to kill things. Of the 18 skills, there are 4 I would consider offensive. Destruction, two-handed, one-handed, and archery. Now, my ultimate build is going to use one-handed and archery primarily. Not primarily, that's what it's going to use. Destruction, I take a few perks from it because it can help with the strength of my enchanted weapons. Two-handed, I take no perks at all, and so, naturally, I reverse the order in which I level those. So as I play through the game, I'm going to max out two-handed first, then I'm going to max out destruction, then I'm going to max out one-handed and archery. Now, with that said, archery in particular, and maybe to a lesser extent destruction, are kind of going to creep up on their own because, especially on legendary difficulty, I'm going to run into some enemies that I just have no way to kill other than skeezy pea shooting them and running away. That just is what it is, because what legendary difficulty does is it causes you to deal 1/4 damage while you receive triple damage. If that sounds harsh, it's because it is. You're really very spectacularly vulnerable until you get your crafting skills maxed, which, due to my Ironborn restriction, might take a while. But those are the 4, those are the order I'm going to raise them in. I'll talk perks as I actually gain levels and assign perk points. Second category then are defensive skills, ways to stop yourself from getting killed. There are really 3 of those: heavy armor, block, and light armor. I do use block. If you're dual wielding, you don't need to worry about it. The choice is really between light armor and heavy armor. I like light armor better because since you can get to the max damage resistance cap either way, I really enjoy the Windwalker perk, which gives you 50% faster stamina regeneration. And it's only available in the light armor tree. But if you like heavy armor, there are good arguments to be made for it too. I especially like, where is it? Fists of Steel can be good for brawling, but the stamina regeneration in light armor I think is objectively quite a bit better. So that's category 2 out of 5. Category 3, the schools of magic. Illusion, conjuration, restoration, alteration. I will now hear something about Ironborn mode. Spell tomes are available as loot, so I really don't know when I'll be able to max these things out. It all depends what spell tomes I find. I'm only willing to spend money on things I can't get any other way, so like, yeah, I'll pay for Breeze Home, and yeah, I'll buy horses. Anything where you don't go into the barter interface, that you instead buy through dialogue, I'll spend money on because there's no other way to get it. Spell tomes, however, are available as loot, but they're randomized, so I don't know when things are going to happen there. Illusion and Conjuration can be very useful, but I'm not getting any perks from those trees. I take a few illusion perks, and alteration perks I take as well, but really those are just a matter of learning the spells and casting them, and they all become much easier to use after my crafting skills are maxed. Category 4, crafting skills. There are 3: alchemy, enchanting, and smithing. They're all pretty basic, and I need to get them all to 100 in order to get the kind of gear that will allow me to survive on legendary mode. That's really all there is to it. I will raise those as I find the supplies to do so, and that's that. Finally, category 5, miscellaneous / the rest, which includes speech, pickpocket, lockpicking, and sneak. Now, how to raise those? Sneak has some very useful perks. Basically, you raise it by sneaking around, which is what I'm going to do. Lockpicking will progress nice and naturally as I open locks. Pickpocket will progress as I steal things from people. Speech will progress as I sell things off and pass persuasion checks. So none of these really need any attention. They will level as I go. Alchemy, enchanting, and smithing, they need attention, of course, but I can make them level as I go by the end of every discrete section. Geographically speaking, I'll have a crafting session. You'll be familiar with those, but we'll waste a lot less time because I'm doing Ironborn mode, so I won't be buying anything. Magic skills will progress nice and naturally once I learn spells and can cast them. Same with killing things. I just have to choose one to focus on. We'll start with two-handed, but as I go through and fight, those will take care of themselves. Defensive skills, whatever I'm choosing to wear, will also basically take care of itself. Can do heavy armor first, then light armor, then block. So, that kind of covers that. Let's talk about attributes right quick. Since everything can be enchanted down to 0 casting cost, there's no reason to raise magicka. Carry weight, power attacks, and sprinting are nice, so it's worth raising stamina, but you need a boatload of health to survive on legendary, so as I go, I'll basically be doing 3 levels of health, 1 level of stamina, and that's pretty much going to be my pattern the entire time. Let's look at the map. On the world map, blah blah blah, locations that you've discovered have light icons, while locations you've only heard about have dark icons. You can select any location you've discovered to fast travel to it. So if you look, I presume we've heard of all 9 hold capitals, although we can't fast travel to any of them. And that's all that's on our map besides Helgen, which we've actually discovered. Let's look at the magic menu next. This is where you can see the joy of SkyUI. So, this is all your spells. It includes your powers, it includes your dragon shouts. So you can see I have the Nord power, battle cry, flames, and healing. This is alteration, I know none. Illusion, I know none. Destruction, I don't know any conjuration. Here's restoration. This is dragon shouts, I have none. These are your powers, and these are your active effects. This is where my 50% frost resist shows up. Now, where SkyUI really shines is in dealing with items. This is a list of everything, and it breaks out weapons, apparel, potions, scrolls, food, ingredients, books, keys, and other. But that's not all. You can filter by name, by what you have equipped. This is very useful for a hoarder like me. You can raise anything that's stolen to the top of the list. You can do enchanted as well, so just ever so much nicer, both in terms of the font, the ability to see things. Notice that books, they have that eye icon next to them. That's if you've read them. Anything you haven't read won't have that. Enchanted objects get a little lightning bolt next to them, and anything that's stolen gets a little red hand in the list, in addition to the usual stolen tag over here in the body. So, really incredibly nice. For my part, I'm just going to sneak. Remaining undetected from Hadvar doesn't help anything, of course. Let's grab this bucket and these 2 baskets. Let's wait on Hadvar. Now this is another thing. I just like Hadvar better than Ralof. Ralof's more bloodthirsty. If you side with Ralof when he hears the Imperials, he says, "Let's see if we can ambush them." He still wants to murder people even in the middle of the dragon attack. Whereas, well, listen to what Hadvar says. He wants to reason with them, and the Stormcloaks attack him anyway, so you fight in self-defense. So I'm going to try to boost my sneak as much as possible while I let Hadvar kill these guys. Now I'm going to undual wield right quick. So one of the best ways to raise your sneak is in the event that enemies have spotted you, you can hide long enough to become hidden, like so. Yeah, I want to turn them hostile. And I'm just going to let Hadvar kill them. So I want to get my sneak up. There we go. Now as that eye narrows, and especially when it closes, I guarantee we're going to get a point in sneak. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Staying undetected from hostiles makes it raise much faster than staying undetected from friendlies. The best way to raise it is to get melee sneak attacks. But that's pretty hard to do. Pretty prohibitively hard until it's all the way up to 70. And you have a, oh shoot, I need a weapon to block. So, fur gauntlets, hide shield, stormcloak, cuirass. The fur gauntlets are better than nothing. And I also need 2 pairs of gauntlets for my crafting loop. That's the first set right there. Outstanding. Let's search the other body. He's got an iron warhammer and the second set of gauntlets I need. So this allows me to do 2 things. Number 1, I need to make note of the fact that I've got my second set of gauntlets. And I can switch to 2-handed weapons. I prefer great swords because they swing the fastest, but we'll use the warhammer for now. Let's go ahead and press M2 to block so that notification goes away. We'll search Gunyer, we'll take his stuff, we'll take all this stuff, and we'll keep going for now. I'm watching the clock. It's been nearly an hour, but I think we can get through the next encounter. Maybe get another point or two in sneak while we're at it. I'll just hide over here, let Hadvar do the killing. I just realized my fancy new headset can mute the mic. That's what I should have been doing with every coughing fit. I learned it for that one. Of course, the webcam mic is still on, so you probably still heard it, but hopefully it was a little less offensive. Sneak to 17, yeah, baby. Just let it fade all the way down. Bam. Alright, let's get spotted again. But not all the way. The best is if you can avoid getting fully detected, like I just pulled off. Sneak to 18. Delightful. Excuse me. Bam, sneak to 19. Shoot. Didn't want to get all the way spotted. Oh well. Sneak to 20. And Hadvar's got him. Alright, let's search him. Optional, search the barrel for potions. We will. Ah, good, there's a great sword. It does less damage, you'll see, but it swings much faster, and therefore raises the skill faster. Which makes it my preference, so you'll note that everything stays on the mounting racks like it's supposed to. Thank you, unofficial patch. Don't miss these alchemy ingredients, those are useful. Let's grab all the junk off of here, including all this. Now, that potion of minor healing, I'm actually going to hold on to because you need one for a quest when you get to Riften. As silly as it might sound. And I like to keep the first thing I find. I don't know, I like the aesthetic of it. So we have that. Search the cupboard, nothing useful. Alright. This barrel has your potions in it. Let's finish clearing this room. Including all these goodies. Don't miss those. And then once this room is clear, it will have been an hour. And so it's time to call it a video. This has been the first installment of Let's Play Skyrim. Pretty much all the preliminary stuff is taken care of. I'm going to edit this. I'm going to get the overlay working. I'm pretty excited to do all that, to try my new strategy with annotations and lists in the description instead of having to read everything. Next time, we'll continue our escape from Helgen. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.